Do you have a message for the world? Today, my guest says, don't think small, go big and hire a publicist on this episode of Coffee with Tea. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Tea. I'm your host, Tonia Tyler, and I'm excited because we're going to be talking to a publicist today, and she's going to be teaching us how to get published and how to get interviewed and get your message out there. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Miss Tracy Lamore. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I know we're going to dive into a little bit more about how to get published, how to build your brand, and how to get interviewed and all that wonderful stuff. But before we get into that, I really want to know, or at least tell the audience, who are you and how did you get started into this wonderful craft of public relations?
So basically I'm from Toronto, and now I'm an international award-winning publicist working across borders and across industries. And I got started, my trajectory in PR is really interesting. It's not the norm. Most people come to PR either because they're reporters, they're in journalism, and they see publicists and they kind of go back and forth because it's communication similar. And other people right out of school or decide that they want to go into it as a career, and it's a 4 or 5 year discipline in college or university. But I didn't do either of those things. As a young girl, if you'd asked me, I did want to be in media. I would have said I wanted to be a journalist. And funnily enough, I did end up coming to that, right? In some ways, through this weird trajectory. But what happened to me was I was a young activist, myself and my husband, Dave Parkinson, in our 20s. He had a radio show on CIUT called Uppercut, which was kind of activist themed. And, we talked about, it was anti-racist and social justice and that kind of thing. And that show lasted for a couple of years and then it was no more. We were just in entry-level sales, doing our day job thing. And it was the early days of the internet because that's how old we are, 51. And so we got our computer probably 97 and got online for 97, 98, a couple of years in. And decided, well, we can still have a voice that way. So we can still talk about injustices and still make a difference with the interwebs. So we were just learning how to make an additional page. All you needed to do was pretty much add your links. So we were looking for neat things going on and people doing important work that we could, the word I would use now is amplify. But back then we were just, sharing it. And somehow in a little tiny corner of the internet, we found a case of Jimmy Dennis, who had paid somebody $20 or something to list him on some site where prisoners could have a voice. And he was on death row, factually innocent. And he was saying, I'm not looking for a pen pal. I'm not looking for a girlfriend or whatever these people are doing. This is just the only way I have to speak to somebody. I'm innocent on death row. Please help. And my husband and I don't know why we started, we got involved, but I remember us saying to each other, well, how innocent can this guy be? And I think because we'd had the radio show, we were more than just activists. We still felt, we were in that information gathering mode still. So it was, the internet, but it was before all this, it was early days of the internet. And we had to actually put a pen to paper and write and send a letter off to death row, which was completely out of our experience and not something that we would ever be thinking we would be doing. But we did it. And he wrote back 28 pages, both sides, tightly written, all the details that he had it in, so plus some legal documentation. It was enough for us to look at it and go, whoa, wait a minute. This is actually really disturbing. From like height, skin colors. He was a very light-skinned black man, and they were saying that it was a really dark-skinned black man. They were saying it was a tall man, like pretty tall, and Jimmy is known as Shorty, so it's really short. So right from the beginning, it was not right. And the more we looked into it, it wasn't right. So what could we do? Because now, like I said on a couple podcasts, well, now we've written out of interest, I guess. So this person sends us this 28-page letter and all these details. We're not lawyers. We're not, we don't have any money to help. We're not publicists or anything. What do? Do we just say, oh, well, that was a good read. Thanks. When somebody actually put us their life and we just read that really disturbing. So as activists, we had to do something. My husband learned how to make a website, and I learned how to, I'm thinking, how are we going to get this out? I guess we have to write a press release. Is that what they call it? So I literally went to the Alta Vista, which is before Google, right? And I learned how to write a press release for immediate release, 3 or 4 paragraphs. So that was back in '98 when I was 28. Gee, don't stress. That was back in 1998 when I was 28. My husband was 28 as well. And so that was the beginning of a journey where for the next 2 years, and we ended up obviously, we're committed to the Jimmy Dennis case. We worked with him. It took 19 years before he was ultimately released. He was on death row for 25 and a half years. We were involved for 19 of those years. He was ultimately released on evidence of factual innocence in 2017. So if you Google his name now, you'll see R&B artist. He's released all kinds of music, and the industry's taken him seriously. And he's been in Rolling Stone and BET and all kinds of things. So that's an amazing, incredible story, and really, really cool to have been a part of. And now to bring it back to the business story, but that literally is the business story because that's how I learned to write a press release, though I never thought about doing it for work. And, between 28 and 41, we had expanded it further, and we were talking because we were so disturbed about Jimmy's case. We're like, how could this happen? So we started looking into the death penalty in general in America and uncovering all the issues in America, injustice in America, and all that stuff. So we were speaking on CNN. And here we were 28, 29, 30 years old, no media experience other than a little radio show, certainly no legal experience. And we were on CNN, MSNBC, Court TV, A&E, with all these lawyers, Catherine Pryor, Nancy Grace. But it still didn't occur to me gee, we're good at messaging and that could be a career. That was just all the stuff we were doing, for about our heart to fight injustice. And then it hit me one day when I was 41, which would be 5 years before Jimmy got out. We still talk every day. Now I'm happy to say I'm his publicist and he's a music artist. What? After 20 years. But so when I was 41, it suddenly hit me one day as I was about to do another 25 calls an hour for a sales job I didn't care about. Hi, this is Tracy calling from something you really don't care about, neither do I. And, I'm paying my bills. It suddenly literally hit me, and I wish I could remember what I was thinking the minute before, but it suddenly hit me, wait a minute, this is called a publicist. All that stuff I've been doing. I learned how to navigate the media, something most people don't know. I could do this for businesses. I could do this for musicians. I could do this. So I suddenly thought that, and because I'm strategic, I started looking online to see how one would do that. And then I started finding, freelance sites, and I started freelancing. And that's how I started, was freelancing. And then 5 years after that, general partnership. And this last year during COVID, we actually incorporated. So like now we're Inc. I'm the managing director of an Inc. All that. Meanwhile, I'm the activist, the crazy red hair activist. But we're doing really well. And now I serve. That's our origin story. But now, if you Google me, we serve customers across industries. Like literally, I have everybody from personal chef, luxury real estate, visual artists that's been in the Louvre, a woman who owns a forensics company, to the founders of a hair care product, to celebrities, to music people, so that's what I do now. It's travel the world when it's not COVID, VIP parties, all that stuff. But all this because I did something everyone thought was crazy, which was help some guy on death row we were right, turned out to be factually innocent. And now he's got amazing footprints in the world, doing amazing work. You search Jimmy Dennis, which I hope people do. Come and find me, but look for Jimmy Dennis because that's an amazing story.
Well, thank you. It is an amazing story because, like you said, we connected and stuff like that. So this is also the point where I want to say, if you're enjoying what Tracy's already putting down, she's already giving you golden nuggets about following your passion and finding your heart, and you never know where that leads. Please give us a thumbs up, hit us up, give us a like, give us a comment or something like that so I can follow below. But we're going to dive now a little bit more into how you can put this, how she can help you put this into your building, your branding, stuff like that. So we're going to talk about a little bit more about branding and stuff like that. But really, I want to know, like, what are some of the do's and don'ts about hiring a publicist that people, need to consider when they're thinking about when they're coming to you? What should they do and what should they not do when they come to hire a publicist?
So yeah, so basically, and you can think about, you can hire people often ask, when should I hire a publicist? And that could be at the beginning of your launch of your company, it could be midterm, it could be before you're thinking about it. Because from a publicist point of view, we're not in sales, we're not in marketing. Your ultimate goal might be to sell your book or your product, but our goal is wider than that. It's to sell you, put the authority and gravitas behind you, so that when you open your mouth and sell your book or your product or ask for speaking engagement or get that movie role or whatever it is, people can Google you, people can search you. And there's that third party credibility where other people have interviewed you, whether it's podcast, whether it's CNN, whether it's Reader's Digest, whether it's, because that's what we do is we look for opportunities for our clients. I look for opportunities for them to be interviewed, for them to get on stages, for them to be awarded, for them to be noticed. I basically say elevate and celebrate, right? So you're having, there's never really a wrong time. You have to realize if you're writing a book but it's not out yet, even if you're starting a company but you haven't started it yet, sure, you're not, this isn't advertising where you're directing someone directly to go do something immediately. If you have that book or that company right away, obviously you're doing that component, it's doing that as well. But this is reputation, global reputation building, and you're already an expert, or you wouldn't be opening that company, or you wouldn't be writing that book. So it's you as an expert that we're selling. And if you start thinking about it that way, you'll get closer to what you need to know to get into media. Because before, and this is number one, whether you have a publicist or whether you're thinking about just reaching out to the media on your own, you have to understand the difference between advertorial and editorial, which is exactly the same for the major newsrooms or your newspaper as it is for your podcast, right? Which is nobody's going to get on, even if they're the most awesome person in the world. They're they're but they do something completely irrelevant to what you talk about, or their messages. If they, what I mean, they talk about how to get the best, you know, make the best machine mold, whatever thing. They have like brilliant information, but it's not for your audience. You know, it's not for your fit. So you have to really understand the audience of wherever you're reaching out to. And that's 50% of it right there, because you need to understand that you are offering yourself as an expert source, as a gift to to the, whoever provided the information, the editor, the podcast, or whatever, for them to have that information, valuable information to give their audience. You're not asking them for something, which is please let Tracy come on and talk about her business. It has to be, yes, you have to understand that difference. And that's really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to get their heads around, because we're really used to like advertising, talking about our business, talking. And I know this because, half of what I do is working with creatives and celebrities. The other half is entrepreneurs right across the board. And you'll say, "Hey, I have a great opportunity to be quoted in Reader's Digest. Can you give me your quote on whatever they're writing about?" And then the entrepreneur will be like, and they'll give a quote that's super advertorial, like it's like, and then tell them to come to mycompany.com, and you're like, no, 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 when did you ever see that in the middle of a Reader's Digest article? So start to understand, read what you're pitching, like, watch the news. Is that something you would like? Is the story you're thinking of putting in there something you would actually expect to see in the news in that little 22 minutes they have? Or would it be more likely that you would see it in the lifestyle section or in page A, in the A section of the newspaper, but probably in page A22, not page A1?
Right.
So once you start thinking like that, you're editing yourself and you start realizing who to aim it at. And you'll be more successful in your pitches.
So what I'm hearing is basically you help us. And I include myself as an entrepreneur because we were talking about being publicists. We're going to get into that a little bit more. But basically, you're like helping us take our little narrow niche and expanding it to being, bigger, broader scene. Correct? Is that
Yeah,
what it is?
and I make people think on a bigger level too. Like I've one, Canadian, he's a hairstylist and sharp, high end, spiffy, like just looks super Hollywood. Yet, is Hollywood. I work in Hollywood as well as Canada. I know Hollywood. I know the people. I know that. The first thing I said to him, I'm like, dude, you're way bigger than what you're doing. He's thinking, oh, but can you help me get some media here in Saskatoon? And I'm like, sure. But, like those people are going to come to you on your street when we do get your global reputation, right? So I got him just net written up in Hollywood Times, talking about how he's a celebrity stylist, because he is now, because I've gotten him quoted in national media and international media. That makes him a celebrity stylist. So now we can call him a celebrity stylist. See what I'm saying? And so even though your work might be local, I said to him, number one, think bigger. Because your work might be local now, but I'll tell you, I've worked with stylists before. Once I get you written up in the Beverly, Hills Times and all these papers, well, now you're global, and those people will fly you places to do their hair. So your clientele is not just the people on your street, even if you're a local provider. Your clientele with something like that could be international. Tomorrow they could be flying you to do hair at the Oscars. So I said, if you want me to take out, from Baghdad to Beverly Hills out of the headline and put, in Saskatoon, cool. But I don't think you do. And he's like, no, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm right. So because he was born in Baghdad, he's got work in Beverly Hills. So I'm like, I did the Beverly Hills. We're not mentioning Saskatoon. Oh well, Saskatoon people will figure it out when it's on your website. You know what I mean? So like,
right. so
people
so
don't think
basically,
globally, right? You think, oh, I'm just like, it's hard to think of yourself as like that's how you get global.
right. So I mean, it's hard for entrepreneurs. Like I said, we're in the little bubble because we're doing our little thing and stuff like that. And I think you touched on it a little bit. But when would you say it's a good time to hire a publicist?
It's never a bad time in my mind. So like it depends if you're obviously planning for a launch, then you'd want to do it a month before or 2 months before your launch or something. If your book's coming out, you want to make sure you have the publicist by the time your book comes out. Ideally for a book by at least a month before, so we can work at any time. But if you give us a month before, there's all kinds of review particular sites that actually want your book before it's published, so that we can get a head start and all that. But in terms of an entrepreneur, whatever, really there is no bad time because you are the expert. So as soon as when if you're confident enough with yourself to open a business, even if you haven't done it yet, but you're doing it, even if it doesn't have, it's not a bad time to start because you be confident enough to take that same confidence that lets you open a business to realize you're an expert taking people's money for what you do and say that makes me an expert to talk to media about it too and translate that same confidence. And so once you've done that, you've set the basis for whatever else you're doing. Because like I say, to you, it's about selling your book or about building your, selling your company product. To me, it's about selling you so that because tomorrow you might not be worried about that book. Tomorrow you might be on to something else. Tomorrow you might no longer be with that company. You might have sold your company and be doing something in a completely different realm. My work is going to follow you permanently. It's that gravitas, it's your expertise, that thought leadership, that so you are to me, you are the product, you are the expert, you are because the product is your voice and your knowledge and sharing that. And so to you, the benefit of that is a bunch of things. There's the immediate benefit if you have a book of selling that book or of selling your product. But even if, you start this thought leadership thing now before you have a book, well, your book benefits from that. Or before you build a business, you benefit from that, because when you start looking for investors and they go and Google you, they see 2 years of history of you being quoted in Reader's Digest of you. So there's never a bad time. You are an expert, you have knowledge, start thinking of yourself. There's no difference between you and anybody else that's an expert that you see quoted in magazines, newspapers, and just get out. There's nobody, media is never going to say to you, oh, well, how many years? I've never once had a media say to my client, how many years have you been in doing this before they decided to interview them? We present them, this is what they do, this is their expertise, this is, and then boom.
Right. Well, I know we're getting down to the last couple of minutes, and I have like two questions for you left. So the first
Okay.
question is, if they don't have anything else, if they don't hear anything else from what you're taking away today, what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with?
I always like to, I end on this frequently because I think it's really important, no matter you're super successful or really feeling down, which is, I mentioned that guy, Jimmy Dennis, who spent 25 and a half years and is on death row. Well, part of the way he got through that is he always said, never, never give up. So that's, if you have goals for real, if somebody who got through that kind of torture and people telling you you're done and just never, never give up was a litany that part of what kept him going. And when he gets down and depressed now, I say something that I saw on internet, which was just we didn't get this far to only get this far. And I think that's awesome, right? For whether you have goals, like if you're doing great and you have goals to crush still, never, never give up. We didn't get this far to only get this far. Keep on going. for that Grammy, for that Pulitzer, for that whatever it is that your goal is, right? But also, even more importantly, if you don't feel like you're crushing it, if you feel like you're a failure, if you feel like life is rough, if you feel like you're a loser, because this life shit is hard, and people aren't always nice. So if you don't feel like you're crushing it, you never give up, and you realize you didn't get this far to only get this far, because the simple fact that you're listening to this today and on your feet, standing there, hearing this means you are a winner. Because, like I said, this world is hard. There's a lot of people who are trying to crush you. So if you're not crushed, and you're not, because you're still here, then you got to keep on going, because you made it through all of that. And you did not make it through all of that to let today get you down. So keep on going. Tomorrow's going to be better. And that's no PR spin.
Well, thank you, Tracy. That
Yeah,
is a pump up right there for real. And I also want to follow. This is my last question. And where can people find more information about you, your services, and what you do?
yeah, thank you. And I do work internationally. So, please feel free to contact me. And I'm happy to do a free 30-minute consult where you can hear and we can relate directly to what you do, how we would help. So yeah, you can find me at lamourie.media.com. That's LAMOURIE media.com. You can find me at Tracy Lamourie PR Media on Instagram, and also Tracy Lamourie on Instagram is a great place to meet me. And if you use the old technology, the telephone, you can reach me at our Beverly, if you're in America, at our Beverly Hills number, or internationally, 424-444-8052, or in Canada, also international, 289-788-5881.
Well, thank you, Miss Tracy, for sharing your wealth of knowledge and insight. This is
Thank
an
you.
unfiltered question because I don't know why I always. Would you ever come back and we go into a deeper
Well,
dive?
yes, please. Are you kidding? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, and I want to wrap up and say appreciate all your insight that you felt, and I also want to also thank all the listeners who tuned in. Remember, feedback is always welcome. Emails if you have any guests or show ideas. Links that Tracy mentioned will be posted down in the description box, so please make sure you check out the description below. And remember, if you're enjoying all the insight that everybody's like, give us a thumbs up. Let us know what you're thinking. And if you want to keep getting the wonderful insight that everybody's sharing, please follow and hit that subscribe button over there. And remember, take things in stride, go with the flow, and create your own path. And we'll see you back here on another episode of Coffee with Tea. All right. Bye bye.